I'm really glad I divorced you, you infertile woman. My ex-husband sneered as he looked down on me when we ran into each other while browsing the shopping district. 5 years ago, despite being married to me, my ex-husband got a mistress. And to make matters worse, he got her pregnant and kicked me out of our home. The anger and sadness from that time came rushing back. He had the same face as that day, when I cried in front of him and his mistress, hurt by their heartless words. The bitter memory of him mocking me. I glared at my ex-husband. As I remained silent and clenched my fists tightly, my ex-husband began to babble on, getting carried away. I'm super happy now. My daughter looks just like her mom and is so cute, and my wife is way prettier and more considerate than you. My ex-husband started bragging about his family, even though I hadn't asked. Honestly, I wasn't interested at all. In fact, I was completely disgusted. I didn't want to hear about it now. As I stayed silent, my ex-husband seemed to think I was frustrated. He gave me a condescending smile. Oh, sorry, I guess you wouldn't know the happiness of having your own child since you're infertile. Really pathetic. When my ex-husband said that, I couldn't hold back and finally spoke. It seems like you're misunderstanding something. My name is Chloe. My ex-husband, Sebastian, and I knew each other from college, where he was a senior and I was a freshman. We met in a futsal club I joined, somewhat reluctantly, because of a friend's influence. I'm not very good at sports, and I never got good at futsal either. I'm more comfortable staying in my room and drawing. But the club members were all kind, and I enjoyed participating despite my lack of skill. Sebastian always practiced with me. He would come to the club as a break from his job hunting, passing the ball with me and showing me tricks. Whenever we practiced on the side of the court, club members would inevitably gather around. Sebastian was handsome and kind, quite popular on campus. He was also one of the best players in the club. I'm sure he would rather be running around the court than hanging out with someone as clumsy as me. When I told him he didn't have to stay with me, he would flash a charming smile. I enjoy practicing with you because you're always so dedicated, Chloe. I quickly fell for Sebastian's kindness. Half a year after we met, Sebastian confessed his feelings to me. I love how hardworking you are, Chloe. I wondered why someone so popular would choose me, but I was happy he did. Even after Sebastian graduated, our relationship continued smoothly. When I entered my 3rd year of working, we got married. I was 25 and Sebastian was 28. Our married life was very happy. When I got married, I left the design company I had been working at and started working as a freelance designer. Sebastian, dinner's ready. Oh, it looks delicious. I'll just put the laundry here. Thanks. Since we both work, we share the household chores. We clean and do laundry whenever we notice it needs doing, and whoever finishes work first prepares dinner. That's how we support each other and live together. We often went out together on weekends. Today, the weather was great, so we brought a picnic to a big park. As we were having a relaxed conversation, we heard a child's cry from somewhere. Maybe a lost kid? I crouched down in front of the boy. What's wrong? I asked as gently as possible, staying at eye level with him. The boy answered through his sobs. I can't find my mom. I see. You got separated from your mom. Let's go look for her together. I put the boy on my shoulders and looked at Sebastian. Sebastian, can you watch our stuff? Sure. I'll call you if I see someone who looks like his mom. Thanks. After about 10 minutes, we found the boy's mother. When I got back to where we were, Sebastian was playing on his phone. Sorry to keep you waiting. Welcome back. I found his mom pretty quickly. She was looking for him too. That's good. Sebastian just nodded, not seeming very interested. I wondered if he wasn't worried, but I hesitated to point it out. Instead, I asked a neutral question while watching the kids playing energetically. Sebastian, do you like kids? Not sure. Oh, but my parents are always saying they want grandkids soon. So, Chloe, it's up to you. I thought it was something we should work on together, but I swallowed my words to not spoil the moment. We had our struggles. Even after a year of marriage, I still couldn't get pregnant. Despite asking friends and researching in books, none of the methods were working. And there was another big problem. Chloe, still no baby yet? I'm sorry. It was Sebastian's parents. Sometimes my in-laws visit our house, and every time they ask, "Are you still not pregnant?" Please, Chloe. We want to see our grandchild soon. Hey, don't put too much pressure on her. We're thinking about a lot of things too. When my father-in-law echoed my mother-in-law's sentiments, Sebastian responded with a bitter face. This made my mother-in-law annoyed, and she retorted. What do you mean by pressure? We're concerned too, you know. Chloe, I brought something good today. Oh, thank you, as always. What she took out of her bag were foods and items that supposedly help with fertility, things you'd find recommended on the internet. While I appreciated the kindness, honestly, it just added to the pressure. My in-laws weren't bad people. They always cared for me, especially since my own parents lived far away. From the beginning of our marriage, they often said it was their dream to hold their grandchild. At first, I would smile and agree, saying, yes, that's true, and I was genuinely looking forward to having children with Sebastian. But as time passed and I still wasn't getting pregnant, their attitudes slowly changed. Their hopeful looking forward to grandchildren turned into why isn't it happening yet? Since Sebastian is an only child, all their expectations fell on him. After my in-laws left, both Sebastian and I were always exhausted. Sebastian looked at the items his mother had left with a frustrated expression and said, Chloe, can't you handle this better? What do you mean? My parents. They bring this stuff every time. Can't you politely refuse or something? Well, they're doing it out of kindness, so it's hard to just turn them down. While both in-laws eagerly awaited a grandchild, my mother-in-law was particularly anxious about my pregnancy. Her enthusiasm sometimes felt overwhelming. She constantly called me with new fertility information she'd picked up from somewhere. If I couldn't answer because of work, she'd call Sebastian instead. Then maybe you could gently tell her yourself? Then I'd just get more snarky comments. Do it yourself. But despite what Sebastian said, completely cutting off contact wasn't the right thing to do. I didn't want to ruin our relationship with his parents. I felt the pressure, but it would be reassuring if my husband were more supportive. My feelings remained unresolved. Recently, Sebastian had been showing his stress more openly. Even though his mother had been told not to pressure us, she still contacted us. The fact that I didn't ignore her calls seemed to annoy Sebastian as well. Moreover, she constantly updated us on how his high school classmates already had 2 kids, or how a friend from her yoga class just had a grandchild. And she always ended with, "So, when are you 2 having one?" With his busy work schedule, Sebastian often came home looking stressed. Sebastian, how about we go see a movie on our next day off? No, I'm too tired. I see. Sorry. It often feels difficult to start a conversation with him these days. We talk less than we did when we first got married, and the atmosphere has become tense more frequently. But I believe everything will change if we have a child. Sebastian will be happy. So will my in-laws. Most importantly, I want to build a warm and happy family with Sebastian and our future child. I talked with Sebastian and decided to start infertility treatment. The first step was to get tested at the hospital. There are limits to what we can learn on our own, so I thought we'd do our best based on the results. Since Sebastian had work, I went to get the test results by myself. I got the results and waited for Sebastian to come home. How were the tests? Here are the results. I pointed to the section on the paper from the hospital. Sebastian looked at where I pointed and frowned. Actually, they said it's hard to conceive with the condition. So, it's your fault we couldn't have kids? What? I didn't understand what he was saying. He threw the folded test results at me. So all the snide comments from my mom were because of you? Did you read the whole thing, Sebastian? Shut up. I don't want to hear it. I'm not eating dinner tonight. Wait, hold on. Even though he had just come home, Sebastian left the house. From that day on, Sebastian started treating me harshly. Hey, Sebastian. Can we talk about the test results and our plan for infertility treatment? I'm tired of hearing about your infertility. That's not it. Every time I tried to explain, he'd interrupt and lock himself in his room. Sometimes he pretended not to hear me at all. Around that time, he started going out drinking with his coworkers without notifying me. He used to always let me know, even for last-minute plans. He'd be out from morning till night on weekends, too. As a result, I ended up doing most of the household chores we used to share. With Sebastian behaving like this, I gradually lost the motivation to have serious conversations with him. After being interrupted and ignored repeatedly, I started to give up, thinking he wouldn't listen anyway. Half a year passed with barely any conversation between us. One day. Chloe, I need to talk to you about something important. Since it was rare for Sebastian to say something like that, I adjusted my work schedule to accommodate him. However, Sebastian didn't start talking right away. What's this important thing you need to talk about? Just wait a bit. Then, the doorbell rang. The person who came in with my husband was a woman I didn't know. Nice to meet you, Chloe. The woman smiled brightly, but I had a bad feeling. Sebastian, who is she? Sebastian said something unbelievable, pointing to the woman with a triumphant look. She's my girlfriend. What do you mean? The woman, who claimed to be his girlfriend, answered my confusion. I'm pregnant with Sebastian's child. That's right. So Chloe, I want a divorce. Sebastian, have you been cheating on me all this time? Was this why he hadn't been home on weekends lately? To be with this woman? My vision went dark. Cheating? A woman who can't even have kids shouldn't talk big. She's gonna make me a family. There it is again. Even though I tried to talk about it many times, he always interrupted or ignored me. Since that day, Sebastian has thought it's my fault we can't have a baby. So, that's... I'm sorry, Chloe. Suddenly, the woman bowed her head. I was so shocked that I stopped speaking. Sebastian and I dated in high school. We broke up, but recently met again at a reunion. He told me things weren't going well with you. Apparently, this woman was Sebastian's ex-girlfriend. I didn't even know he had gone to a reunion. While we were talking, we realized we still had feelings for each other. And then I got pregnant. Sebastian said he'd rather be with someone who can give him children than a wife who can't. I couldn't say anything. I was too shocked that Sebastian had said such things behind my back. I'm really sorry to hurt you, but I'll make Sebastian and our baby happy, so please step aside. Although she apologized, she didn't seem sorry at all. In fact, she kept glancing and smiling at Sebastian. I could feel their contempt for me. Look, she's apologizing. Just quietly divorce me and set me free. Set you free? That's a terrible thing to say. Besides, if you had listened properly when we started infertility treatment, this wouldn't have happened. How many times do I have to tell you? I don't want to hear excuses from an infertile woman. You kept nagging me about it every day. And when you finally stopped, you barely talked to me at all. Sebastian glared at me. Because of you, our home has become unbearable, and my parents keep asking about grandchildren. It's only natural to prioritize a woman who can give me a child over you, right? That's terrible. The shock was too much, and I burst into tears. No matter how much I struggled with not getting pregnant or how persistently my in-laws nagged me, I thought it would be okay as long as Sebastian was on my side. I believed that if we worked hard together on infertility treatment, we could build a happy family one day. Sebastian looked down at me coldly as I cried with my face buried in my hands. I'll give you 2 days. Pack your things and leave. Don't forget to sign the divorce papers. Well, I'll be off then. Sebastian left with the woman. He probably wouldn't return until I was gone. How did it come to this? As I packed my things, I thought vaguely. We were so happy when we were dating and right after we got married. I loved spending time with just Sebastian, and I wanted to welcome our future children with his kind, child-loving nature. I remembered the woman's mocking smile. Sebastian no longer had feelings for me. Thinking that, I couldn't even bring myself to contact him. I had lost all motivation. Was it my fault for not forcing a proper conversation? Maybe if I had expressed my desire to work things out together, things would have been different. Because I gave up, Sebastian rekindled things with his ex and decided to have a child with her and leave me. I knew that he had been under a lot of pressure from his parents before we got the test results. He had always wanted his own child. When he saw the results and thought it was my fault, his bottled-up stress probably exploded. That would explain why he suddenly started treating me harshly. It's an incredibly unfair reason. But that woman already had a baby. I couldn't compete with that. The shock was too much, and to keep my sanity, I convinced myself that it was my fault. If it was my responsibility, then I just needed to handle it better. Even though he gave me 2 days, I left the house the next day. My parents were surprised when I suddenly showed up at their house, but they must have sensed something from my tear-swollen eyes because they welcomed me warmly. After hearing what happened, my parents were furious. "Chloe, let's hire a lawyer and proceed with the divorce. I have some connections. But if I just step aside, everything will settle down smoothly." I was aware of how pathetic I sounded. I knew I should handle this properly. But I was just so tired. Sebastian, whom I loved so much, didn't believe in me and betrayed me in the end. The happy family Sebastian and I had always dreamed of was taken away by that woman. Honestly, I don't want anything to do with them anymore. I never want to see those mocking eyes again. "Chloe." My mom called my name gently as I sat in silence. "It's not your fault, Chloe." "Huh? Knowing you, you probably think you just need to handle it better yourself." "How did you know?" My mom smiled proudly. "Because I'm your mother." "That's right, Chloe. Let's fight this properly. We're here for you." What strong allies I have. Sebastian stopped being on my side, but my parents will always believe in me until the end. Thank you, Mom and Dad. I felt like I had woken up from a long sleep. I can't keep feeling sorry for myself forever. I'll settle this properly. 3 months later, the divorce was finally finalized. At first, Sebastian refused to pay alimony, but the lawyer my father's acquaintance introduced took over all communications with him. We finally settled, receiving demands and properly dividing the assets. 5 years have passed since then. Now 32, I found myself near the house I used to live in with my ex-husband. A mutual acquaintance from our married days was moving, so I came to see them. After saying goodbye to them, I walked through the familiar shopping district. "Chloe?" "Sebastian." It was my ex-husband. This was the first time I'd seen him since that day he introduced that woman to me. As I instinctively tensed up, Sebastian gave me the same condescending smile as before. "So, you've been hiding out at your parents' house all this time? It's none of your business." It was true that I had returned to my hometown since then. He seemed to think I was hiding, but it was too ridiculous to correct him. "I'm really happy now. My daughter is in kindergarten, and she's cute like her mom." Sebastian started bragging, even though I hadn't asked. He went on and on about how adorable his child was and how he, his new wife, and their child were enjoying life together. Not even giving him a nod, he smirked at me. "Oh, you wouldn't understand. After all, you're an infertile woman. Divorcing you was the right choice." I couldn't keep silent any longer and opened my mouth to speak. "Infertility? Who are you talking about?" "Huh? I've been asking who you're referring to as infertile." "Who?" My ex-husband looked blankly at me, staring as if trying to bore a hole through me. Then he suddenly burst out laughing loudly. "Did I say something funny?" I asked, aware of the people around us, while Sebastian kept laughing. Everything you say is funny. Have you been hiding away so long that you're making things up now? Don't be ridiculous. You're the ridiculous one. You're the infertile one, that's why I divorced you. You really don't understand anything, do you? My sighing words made him glare at me sharply. You're the one who doesn't get it. You're infertile, you let me and my parents down. I married someone who can give me a family. That's all there is to it. You're the one who betrayed me. You wouldn't even listen to me and went and found a mistress. You can't even imagine how hurt and sad I was. Ha, that's just the whining of a loser. Seeing you now just makes me feel sorry for you. An infertile woman is worthless to me. You really don't get it, do you? I was amazed at how little he understood reality. By now, you'd think he would realize he might be misunderstanding something. But Sebastian kept mocking me, stuck on the idea that I was infertile. His ignorance was so laughable that I couldn't help but chuckle. What? His face grew even more contorted with anger. What are you laughing at? Are you mocking me? Not at all. I'm just stating the facts. Facts? How many times do I have to tell you? The only fact is that you're infertile. He shouted as if to make sure everyone around could hear. At that moment, I heard a voice. Chloe? What's going on? I turned around to see a tall man standing there. He was holding a small child and came to stand beside me. When the child saw me, he reached out with a big smile. Mommy! Mommy! My ex-husband stood with his mouth agape. I took my son, Noah, from my husband's arms. Hey, whose kid is that? A relative's? He's my son. He just turned 3. What? No! Yes, my biological son. Recovering from his stunned state, my ex-husband began to question me, and I told him about what happened after our divorce. Even after the divorce was finalized, I couldn't move on right away. Once things ended with Sebastian, the sadness hit me hard. I couldn't focus on my design work and spent days barely leaving the house. It was during this time that I met my current husband. Or rather, we reconnected. He was a classmate from middle school. He had heard about my situation through mutual friends and reached out. At first, we exchanged messages, then phone calls, and eventually, we met in person. Thanks to his friendly nature, I gradually regained my spirits. I started by helping my mom with house chores and shopping, and eventually, I was able to return to my design work. He also got in touch with other classmates who were still in the area and often invited me out. For the first time in a long while, I laughed heartily and reminisced about the past. By then, I had fully recovered and could talk openly about what had happened with my ex-husband. As I met with my old classmates more frequently, I found myself spending more time alone with him. When he heard about what happened between me and Sebastian, he was angrier than I was. He worried about me and comforted me, and I found myself naturally drawn to his kindness. A year after our reunion, we got married, and the following year, Noah was born. Listening to my story, my ex-husband looked at me and my current husband in disbelief. But you were infertile. We got the tests done, and they confirmed it. No, that was about you. I tried to convey the truth as calmly as possible. My ex-husband's eyes widened in shock. What do you mean? Exactly what I said. The one who had difficulty conceiving wasn't me, it was you. It was clearly written on the test results. My ex-husband had misunderstood all along. He believed the reason we couldn't have children was because of me. He read only the part of the document I pointed to and never looked at the name. Convinced that I was the one with fertility issues, he never rechecked the test results or listened to me, and continued to blame me. He accused me of being the reason his parents made snide remarks, and of not allowing him to fulfill his dream of having children. You never told me any of this. I tried to. I shouted back at my ex-husband, who was yelling at me. I tried to tell you many times. But every time, you wouldn't listen. But there were months before we divorced. There were plenty of chances to talk. True, but after being interrupted and ignored so many times, don't you think it's natural to lose the will to talk? But still. My ex-husband still seemed unconvinced. Then you could have told my parents or found some other way. I thought about that too. But I didn't think it was right to discuss your private matters with your parents without your permission. Besides, I wasn't sure if they'd believe me. If my ex-in-laws believed my explanation, it would put even more pressure on my ex-husband. But if they didn't believe me, their hostility towards me would only grow. Either way, I didn't have the courage to say anything. Don't be ridiculous. Because you didn't say anything, I ended up paying you for the damage. My ex-husband stepped towards me, but my current husband quickly stepped in to shield me. Please don't touch my family. Damn it. Blocked by my tall husband, my ex-husband looked frustrated. My husband, with a solid build, stood towering over him, causing my ex-husband to shrink back. You were angry because Chloe didn't talk, but that's not the real issue, is it? Though speaking politely, my husband was clearly furious. He's usually gentle, but in situations like this, his presence is formidable. The real issue is that you misunderstood Chloe because you didn't listen to her and then you betrayed her. Isn't that right? That's... Turning away from my ex-husband, my husband faced me and Noah. Chloe, let's go. It's time to head home. Yes. As I walked past my ex-husband, holding Noah, a thought crossed my mind. Hey, are you sure that the child she had is really yours? What? In truth, it's probably better if he doesn't know. But I wanted to say this one last thing. The one with fertility issues was you, right? So, how likely is it that your current wife got pregnant right at that time? Are you suggesting she was with another man? I'm just talking about possibilities. And another thing you seem to misunderstand, being told you have fertility issues doesn't mean you can't have children at all. So, it's possible that your daughter is indeed your biological child. My ex-husband, not really listening to my attempt to be somewhat considerate, kept muttering, "No way, that can't be." But there was nothing more I had to say. Goodbye. Leaving my pale-faced ex-husband behind, I left with my precious family. I heard the rest of the story from a friend from my college days. We were close in the futsal club, where there were few girls. She was 2 years below my ex-husband and worked at the same company. I was surprised when they called suddenly, saying they had something to report about my ex-husband. I thought you might not want to hear this, but I wanted to tell you before he tried to contact you. She seemed worried about me. And I was a little curious, so I decided to listen. After meeting me, he apparently confronted his wife, asking if their daughter was really his. She insisted, of course she was. However, her attempts to cover it up were blatantly obvious. My ex-husband then told his parents, and they confronted her together. Stop being so persistent. Of course, she's your child. Then let's do a DNA test to confirm it. That's not necessary. But my ex-husband's parents didn't accept her refusal. If you're so adamant, it must be someone else's child, right? Tell us the truth. Fine. Whatever. Pressured by my ex-in-laws, she finally agreed to a DNA test. As expected, the results showed that the child was not biologically related to my ex-husband. In a fit of rage, my ex-husband's wife confessed everything. At that time, she had been seeing another man. Both she and the other man were freelancers with no steady jobs. Marriage and raising a child seemed like a distant dream. Then, at the reunion, she reconnected with her ex, Sebastian. For a while, she continued seeing both men, but eventually got pregnant. Knowing the child wasn't Sebastian's, she hid the truth and married him, breaking things off with the other man. Naturally, once my ex-husband found out the truth, he filed for divorce. He claimed demand and refused to pay child support since the child wasn't his. However, she didn't accept this. She argued that he had a responsibility to pay child support since they had been raising the child together. She was furious and demanded payment. Despite her arguments, the DNA test was the decisive factor, and the messy court battle concluded. My ex-husband managed to finalize the divorce and kicked her out of the house. After the divorce, she became a single mother. Having floated through life without a steady job, she finally found employment at a low-paying, exploitative company. She worked desperately, being scolded by her younger manager. The man she was dating alongside my ex-husband was arrested for shoplifting. Unable to bear the extreme poverty, he resorted to theft. With no support or child support from the biological father, she turned to her parents for help. Though they had cut ties with her due to her repeated relationship troubles and reliance on their money, they agreed to look after their granddaughter while she worked, but offered no financial aid. Now, she couldn't afford to quit her job, as her daughter was about to start school. But the story didn't end there. After the second divorce, my ex-husband moved back in with his parents. However, his parents weren't very welcoming.
Sebastian, why did you divorce her again? She gave us a grandchild.
I've told you 1,000 times. She lied about the child being mine. We had no choice but to divorce.
We were so happy to finally have a grandchild. We've been living together for years, she's practically your own child.
While his mother lamented, his father was already eager to find him a new partner.
All right, I'll find you a good woman this time. Someone who can give you a real child.
Yeah, there's no point dwelling on the past. Let's move on quickly. Feeling completely abandoned by his parents, who were more focused on finding him a new wife, Sebastian reached his limit.
It's me.
What?
I'm the reason we can't have kids.
Sebastian, desperate and frustrated, confessed everything. From there, the situation exploded into a massive argument.
Why didn't you say anything until now? I didn't know until recently myself. What about our dream of having a grandchild? That will never come true now. Shut up! I'm tired of your pressure. I've had enough.
Ignoring his own fault of not listening, Sebastian blamed everything on his parents. But they weren't about to take it quietly.
Every time someone bragged about their grandkids, it killed us. You have no idea how we felt. We don't care if there's no blood relation. Apologize to your wife and child and live with them. Get real!
The shouting match was so loud that the neighbors called the police multiple times.
And what happened to him after that?
His parents kicked him out. They disowned him for not being able to have children. He was stubborn, though, and said he wanted to cut ties with them. It seemed that Sebastian's parents had also become outcasts in their neighborhood. They couldn't afford to move, so they lived quietly, trying to avoid attention. I did think it was extreme of them to go so far for a grandchild, but they had an intense obsession with the idea of having one. Watching their friends and acquaintances become grandparents must have made them increasingly envious.
Wow, you sure know a lot about this, don't you?
I found it surprising that a colleague would know such detailed information about what happened to Sebastian. My friend laughed and explained my curiosity.
Sebastian told us everything during a drinking session by himself.
After my ex-husband's second divorce and cutting ties with his parents, his work ethic and lifestyle visibly deteriorated. He gained weight from eating out all the time and sometimes wore the same dress shirt to work for 3 days straight. He had to do all the housework alone, along with his job. And it was clear to everyone that he was overwhelmed. His colleagues, worried about his declining state, invited him out for drinks to cheer him up.
That's when he spilled everything about his wife, the fights with his parents, and even drunkenly revealed the reasons for your divorce, Chloe.
I see. His colleagues, who had been concerned about him, were shocked by the truth and pulled away from him. Unable to bear the judgmental stares from his peers, my ex-husband eventually quit his job. Now, he's juggling part-time jobs while job hunting, living in extreme poverty.
I feel a bit sorry, knowing the cool Sebastian from college, but I'm glad to see you're happy, Chloe.
Thank you.
I think I should tell my husband about all this.
That's a good idea. And remember, drink responsibly.
Absolutely.
We ended the call with a plan to gather with old club members soon. My ex-husband wouldn't be there, of course. Like my friend said, I couldn't help but feel something about my ex-husband's fate. Those happy times were real, after all. But now, I have a precious family. And something important to share. When my husband got home and was playing with our son, I told them I had something to say. With a serious face, he listened as I made my announcement.
I'm pregnant.
Really?
Yes, I went to the doctor today.
My husband was stunned for a moment, then he lifted our son and cheered.
Wow! Chloe, thank you!
He hugged both me and our son, his joy exaggerated and infectious.
Noah, you're going to have a little brother or sister.
Brother? Sister? Noah didn't quite understand his excited dad's words but smiled, seeing how happy we were. Right now, I am very happy.